much for coming out. My name is Tracy Berry, and I'm an Assistant United States Attorney here in the Eastern District of Missouri. On behalf of U.S. Attorney Sailor Fleming, sitting right there, the FBI, and our fellow members of the St. Louis Elder Financial Protection Coalition, I'd like to thank you for coming out today for our commemoration of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. 16 years ago, this day was launched to raise our collective consciousness of abuse against older adults. Even though the problem was recognized in the 70s, attention to abuse suffered by older adults took a back seat to child abuse, to spousal abuse. It was only recently that we started raising the consciousness, and as a result, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, we have an opportunity every June 15th to promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older adults. Furthermore, it is a call to action for individuals, organizations, and communities to learn how to identify, address, and prevent this form of abuse so we can all do our part to support everyone as they age. While the Missouri Department of Human Services has been planting pinwheels since 2017, this year, with the assistance of Lisa Knoll of Aging Ahead and Wendy Bremer of the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, the United States Attorney's Office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been able to recognize the 2,730 substantiated reports of older adult abuse occurring within the greater St. Louis metropolitan area last year. Each of the 273 pinwheels that will ultimately be planted on the grounds of the FBI represent 10 substantiated reports. Unfortunately, those numbers do not capture the true incidence of abuse cases experienced by older adults in our community. According to the National Center on Elder Abuse Statistics, 1 in 6 older adults reported experiencing some form of abuse. However, the ability of agencies like Adult Protective Services to substantiate those numbers is hamstrung by so many factors, such as the victim's unwillingness to provide information against an abusive or exploitive family member. And more troubling is the center's statistic that for every reported incident of abuse, nearly 24 additional cases remain undetected. So when you view those 273 pinwheels as representing 2,730 substantiated cases, consider that the number of older abuse incidents could be as high as 65,520 in the St. Louis metropolitan area alone. In the entire Eastern District of Missouri, there were over 8,900 substantiated cases. Once again, multiply that by 24, and the number is just, it's too troubling to be imagined. So we hope that the sight of these pinwheels will commemorate the tens of thousands of older adults in this area who suffered from physical and mental abuse, as well as financial exploitation from strangers, caregivers, and most particularly family members. I'll turn the floor over to Special Agent Joshua Morrill of the FBI.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Morrill, and I'm an Assistant Special Agent charged with the FBI in St. Louis. Thank you for joining us today and helping to spread this information. Today, our focus is on awareness. The FBI recently released the 2021 Elder Fraud Report, and the trend of elder fraud abuse is not good. This report showed an increase in financial losses to elderly victims of 74% since the previous year. Again, that's an increase of 74% since the previous year. The total amount of the losses from that increase, from the total amount of fraud, the losses accumulated to $1.7 billion. These victims are typically less aware of the constantly evolving technology, making them more vulnerable to exploitation. They also tend to have a larger nest egg, making them a target. Today, we'd like to focus on the #1 most common form of cybercrime against elderly victims, and that is tech support fraud. Tech support fraud is a technique where scammers impersonate technical or customer support services. And in the scam, the bad guys will offer to fix non-existent problems on computers, with bank accounts, with utility companies, and more. The amount of money that was exploited through elderly victims from tech support fraud doubled since the previous year. One of these victims is here today to share her story. In just a moment, Ms. Vivian Fox will share her experience with tech support fraud. Ms. Fox, thank you for sharing your story today. We hope that you sharing your story will help encourage other people to be more aware of this type of fraud and will prevent future fraud from happening. Please understand, elderly victims are being hunted by organized criminal enterprises, but there are things we can do to help. Awareness is the key to prevention. If nothing else, please remember this slogan: always doubt and check it out. To help stop tech support fraud, do not give remote access to your devices or accounts to unverified people. Anytime you are asked to part with money or with personal information, automatically pause and think about the situation. Then do your due diligence. Independently look up the phone number and call the organization to verify the legitimacy of the request. Ask a loved one if it seems legit. If you are concerned about tech support issues, take your device to a reputable dealer and have it looked at there. And if you are victimized, immediately contact your bank and ask for any wire transfers or any transfer of money to be stopped. In closing, I'll say it again: always doubt and check it out. This can prevent a majority of the scams. And with that, Ms. Fox, I'd like to ask you to share your story.
It was an afternoon, and I received a call that said they were calling from Apple support, and that there was a problem with my account. And they wanted to go into my account to access remotely to help me figure it out, because money was being taken out of my account, and they wanted to make sure that when I ordered any services, that I would get proper credit for it. So as he said, I said, well, I'll call you back. So I hung up, because I said, this doesn't sound right. So I called, but what I didn't do is I called the number they called from instead of going through to make sure to look it up a number. And when I called the number back, they answered Apple support. And then I let her have remote access to my account. And over the conversation, she kept saying, we're gonna take this out, but it'll go right back. And it took 16 transactions out of my account in then one call. And then I realized that something's not right, because then I looked at my bank account and all the money was steady coming out. And so I got off the phone, and then when I tried to call back, they didn't answer. It just rings and rings. And I just had a gut feeling that something was wrong. So then I called the police department, and she came out and took a report. And I went to my bank, and what they had did, they took out $99 transactions in less than 10 minutes.
Now, Ms. Fox, who did you report this to once you found out that they had taken so much money out of your account?
First, I contacted the police department, my first local police department, and then I contacted my bank.
Were you able to recover any of those funds?
I was lucky enough that the bank, I recovered all of the funds, which from what I'm hearing is very rare, but I was able to get all of the funds back.
Okay. And do you think this is the result of the fact that you reported it to your bank so quickly after it first started happening, as well as to the police?
I think that's it, and having a report with your local bank so that they know what accounts you have and that you're a good customer, and that I wasn't making because you could call and say you got money taken out and it's not really accurate. But I think having that relationship, and I think it's important for us as seniors to have relationships with the financial institutions that we deal with.
Thank you. Now, if we would turn your attention, I think our next speaker is.
I would just like
I'm
to
sorry,
have,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
just to say to those that, as a matter of warning, they don't call you if your computer or your account is broken. That's what I realized. You would call them. They're not sitting there watching. So just if anybody calls and says your computer's not working, your phone is not working, they don't know that it's not. Know right there that there's something wrong. And that's what I realized. As many spam calls as I get, they're not gonna call and say that nothing is working. So be real careful when you get a call like that. That it's a spam.
Thank you. We really appreciate you coming out. I think the message that you've provided today is going to carry a greater weight than anything that any of us can say, because you've had that actual experience. And I also wanted to publicly thank the Better Business Bureau, who worked with Ms. Fox and worked with the coalition in order to bring her to our attention and make it possible for her to be here today. So I'd like to introduce you to, right there, you can stay there. This is Tim Jackson. He is the administrator with Adult Protective Services for the state of Missouri.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay? All right. Well, thank you very much, first of all, to all of our partners for the invite this morning to speak on this very important day, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. My name is Tim Jackson, and I am the administrator for the Adult Protective Services program within the Department of Health and Senior Services Division of Senior and Disability Services. I'd also like to introduce my colleague with me this morning, Jerry Green, who is in charge of our two of our functions: intake, taking reports, and also our investigations unit. So thank you, Jerry. All right, so Adult Protective Services for the state of Missouri exists to protect, support, and advocate for seniors and adults with disabilities who are impacted by abuse, neglect, and/or exploitation, to help them live safer, healthier, and more independent lives. We do this by responding to reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, providing support to those victims by linking them with needed support services and assistance like financial help or help obtaining necessities like food or medication. And we also do it by advocating that justice is to be served, or advocating for justice to be served when a crime has been committed against an elderly or disabled Missourian. We at APS envision a Missouri where seniors and adults with disabilities are empowered to live free of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. One of the issues that we're focusing on today, obviously, is financial exploitation. Financial exploitation is the second most frequent type of report that we receive in Missouri. Nearly 25% of the allegations that we receive are financial exploitation. So financial or material exploitation includes the misuse or mishandling of property, possessions, or assets of an adult. It also includes using another's assets without consent, under false pretense, or through coercion or manipulation. So when somebody calls into the Adult Abuse and Neglect Hotline, which we manage inside of Adult Protective Services, when someone calls in to that number to make a report for exploitation, for example, one of our APS specialists somewhere in the state receives that report and responds to that elderly or disabled individual to look into the validity of those allegations that were made. If our responder feels that a crime has potentially occurred, then they quickly involve investigative specialists from our Special Investigations Unit, which Jerry leads. Our investigator then works in tandem with law enforcement or takes the lead in ensuring that a complete and thorough investigation has been completed before making a referral for prosecution. As that criminal investigation proceeds, the victim's needs are monitored and the appropriate wraparound services are put into place. And it's important to note that we at APS can't accomplish any of this without our very important partners. Most importantly, our partners in law enforcement and our community partners that provide resources and supports to the folks that we serve. And one of those resources is going to speak in a moment here from Lisa Knoll. So before my time's up, I just wanted to mention quickly how to report abuse. If you suspect that someone is being abused, bullied, neglected, or exploited, call the Adult Abuse and Neglect Hotline at 1-800-392-0210. Our hotline operates 365 days a year from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Those who are deaf or hard of hearing may access Relay Missouri by calling 1-800-735-2466. And we also have an online option for reporting, which is at health.mo.gov/abuse. So that's all that I have for this morning. Thank you again, and I'll turn it back over to Tracy.
Actually, I'm gonna turn it over to Lisa Knoll with St. Louis area, St. Aging Ahead.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. My name's Lisa Knoll, and I am the CEO at Aging Ahead. We are one of 10 area agencies on aging in the state of Missouri. And I'm here actually with my colleagues from the city area agency on aging. I'll introduce Annalisa Stover and Jamie Saunders. But I'm actually also, in addition to representing the area agencies on aging, we're here to represent the many community-based organizations that are part of our coalition, because there are a lot of us. And as Tim mentioned, the partnerships that we provide each other are very important. So the community-based organizations are the ones who are out in the community every day with staff and volunteers who provide services to older adults, their caregivers and family members. And so they see firsthand, we see firsthand people that are homebound and often very isolated. And we all know that those things can increase the risk for abuse and exploitation. And we know the numbers too. Every day, 10,000 more older adults turn 65 every day in this country. 1 of 4 live alone. So again, it's that issue of isolation. We've seen that exacerbated by COVID, and so that makes our job all the more challenging. And again, with emphasis on those partnerships, that's the only way that we can really make an impact. So one of the things that we are talking about today is technology. And so we recognize that technology, it's sort of a good news, bad news, right? So it's great, and it has been great for people who have not had access before and that are isolated, especially if they're an older adult who is not familiar with technology or has not had access. So we're working very hard in the community to get that to people so that they can have that socialization component or telehealth, classes online, and so forth. But on the bad news side, if people are not trained to use it safely, we see that fraud and exploitation happen through tech means. And so, that has to be happening at the same time. And many of us, most of us that are community-based organizations are, and part of our mission is to do outreach, education, and awareness. That's what we do. Most of us are mandated reporters. So when we suspect a case of exploitation, fraud, abuse, we are mandated to report that to APS, and we do. We are also required to advocate, and so that can mean for individuals. It can also mean advocating for systems change. And again, that's part of what the work that we do at the coalition is that we partner with other organizations, whether they're community-based, law enforcement, financial institutions, because I say this all the time, but the days are over when any one of us can do this work alone and really be effective at it. So we need to work together. And I think with that, I'll segue, if I could, to Mary Tucker. Is that correct?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Mary Tucker. I'm one of the founders of the St. Louis Elder Financial Protection. Used to be multidisciplinary team. We recently changed our name to Coalition, and Lisa and everybody has gotten the coalition part right. I might say MDT every now and then for multidisciplinary team. I'm also on the advisory council of the coalition. And one thing I want to celebrate today on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is the fantastic partnership that we would have had with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with Tracy Berry, who's the Elder Justice Coordinator, with Sailor Fleming, with Josh Morrill in the FBI, with Pete Dyer at the U.S. Postal Inspection Services. Our federal participation in the coalition has just been outstanding, and that has come for years. One of the things that's so important with what we do, we're, we say coalition, we're a voluntary organization. We don't have a staff, we don't have a budget. People whose job is elder financial protection are part of this, as well as people whose job is not, but who are passionate about this issue. And what we have accomplished in the past 4 years is a whole lot of networking and awareness raising among professionals in Missouri. And I should mention another amazing partner, which has been Adult Protective Services at the St. Louis regional level and at the statewide level. We're very excited with being here to work with Adult Protective Services on some new possibilities for dealing with elder financial abuse at the county level with law enforcement and with case review teams, multidisciplinary teams. So that's one thing that's on our agenda. Our other things on our agenda are always to be doing public outreach and training. We just had a couple of webinars. Tracy Berry and Pete Dyer participated in one and talked about a very interesting case that the U.S. Attorney's Office brought along with the FBI and the Postal Inspection Service. And so we're looking forward to working on outreach in the community with more cross-training, with advocacy at the state and local level for better regulations, for better enforcement of existing laws. Missouri is fortunate to have some really good laws on prosecuting elder financial abuse, and we need more resources to actually do that work, both at the local level and at the state level. I think with that I'm gonna end. Just thank you for the opportunity to be part of this great group.
Mary, I'm not gonna let you end.
Yeah.
Because Mary, before she retired and took on the coalition as what appears to be almost a full-time job now, was manager of elder client initiatives with Wells Fargo. So if you could, we have actually seen a lot of great things coming from our partnerships with financial institutions with regard to prosecution and investigations. Mary, could you share from your perspective or former perspective what you saw when you were working in the financial industry?
Sure. So this is Wells Fargo Advisors, and what we saw our role as was obviously risk management for the company, but also for our customers. They kind of went hand in hand, and our customers tended to be those people with nest eggs, with a lot to lose, and they also tended to be people who, as they aged, were just more vulnerable to exploitation by others. And the others included not only strangers and telecom scams and computer assisted scams like Ms. Fox was subjected to, but exploitation by family members who were supposed to be trusted people to help them manage their finances. Unfortunately, with the use of powers of attorney and other technological means that people use now to move vast amounts of money online, money and assets, this becomes a serious problem for financial institutions. And I would say one of the things we really did here, have done with the coalition, was to raise awareness among financial institutions about how important it is to work cooperatively with Adult Protective Services and with law enforcement to provide records as quickly as possible. We in the financial industry are often the first people to see the signs that there's inappropriate asset movement going on, or someone is not using the assets for the benefit of the client, of our client. That's very bad for the client. That's very bad for financial institutions. We need to be doing as good a job as we can on watching that. And the coalition and working with all of these fantastic partners has meant that we know who to call. Somebody at Wells Fargo knew who to call at Adult Protective Services. If somebody needed services at a local level, we knew about the Area Agency on Aging, Aging Ahead. And that was so incredibly powerful. Nobody, as Lisa said, nobody can sit around waiting for, you know, some sheriff to ride in on a white horse and take care of this. This is us. This is our problem. We need to deal with this now. So, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. And so I want to thank everyone for coming out. We have members of the coalition who will be available if anyone has any questions. Kristen, who's here, is a private attorney who has continued, once she changed jobs, to work with the coalition just because of her passion for this job. And I'd also like to thank our 3 interns from the U.S. Attorney's Office who came out and helped and have sweated in putting those pinwheels in the ground, James, Charles, and Musa. And so I want to thank all of you for coming out and for what you're doing to help us bring awareness to this. We've got some more pinwheels to plant,